there, this is Beth Woodard, and I'm out here today at Camp Ozone because, well, I live here, and I'm going to be leading an edible and medicinal foods walk today, and I thought perhaps it would be helpful to also make a couple of videos to show some of the things that we'll be going over today while we are on our walk. That way those people who forget can come back and look at that information, and it just might be helpful to other people too. Our mission here at Camp Ozone is to teach children and families to love God, His Word, and His created world. And we like to try to use His things that He's created in this world to just help teach others about Him. So one of the first things before we even get to edible and medicinal foods that I teach people on any walk is what is poison ivy and how to avoid it, how to identify it, how to know what you're looking at. I see an awful lot of people that misidentify poison ivy, and they just really don't know what they're looking for. And we have a lot of it on the property, a lot of it. So it's really good if you know what you're looking for and you know how to be absolutely sure of it. One of the very common statements you hear people make about poison ivy to help them remember is leaves of 3, let it be. Well, that's great, but the problem is there are a lot of things that have 3 leaves, not just poison ivy. And so we're going to take a look at some of the lookalikes, even though once you know how to identify poison ivy, they don't really look like them, but they do have 3 leaves. And so we're going to look at some of those lookalikes and then at what actually poison ivy looks like and how to identify it properly. So let's take a walk. This one. Notice we've got 3 leaves located around the central area here. 3 leaves, 3 leaves, 3 leaves. Yep, not poison ivy. I won't tell you why right now, but I'm just gonna say, nope, not poison ivy. So these leaves here actually are poison ivy. Notice you've got 2 leaves, or 3 leaves, excuse me. The leaves are a little bit shiny. They're fairly dark, they're glossy. They have these ridges on the sides of them, and that can vary. They're not all going to look the same. Sometimes they're more ridged than others, but they're rarely perfectly smooth. They generally have some kind of lobing or toothing to them. So they're very irregular. Not all the leaves are going to look the same, even on the same plant. These people misidentify as poison ivy. And the easiest thing to see on this here is it's got thorns. Poison ivy does not have thorns. You do have 3 leaves, again, but this is more of a toothed leaf, where you have the teeth all along the edge. You don't have lobing on these leaves, really. It's mainly the toothing, and poison ivy leaves are not sharply toothed like this. And definitely, they never have thorns, which clearly this does. This is a wild blackberry plant. And so another very common one got here. Sometimes you see them with 5 leaves, sometimes you see them with 3, but here you have more of the 3-leafed variety, but still not poison ivy, just blackberry. So if it's got thorns, it's not poison ivy. Right in here among my blackberry bushes, that is poison ivy. 1, 2, 3 leaves, and look, those are pretty round. There isn't any lobing or toothing really on those. You really just have to get a look for this. You notice too that it's got a reddish stem. That's pretty common in poison ivy. But those are really, really straight leaves for poison ivy. Again, you've got a lot of variance in it. There's another poison ivy leaf right there. Okay. You do still have, though, that kind of shiny, glossy look to them, which sets them apart somewhat from your other 3-leafed plants. Another of the rhyming sayings we have around here about poison ivy is, if it's hairy, it's scary. You see this rather giant hairy vine going up this tree, and you can see some poison ivy down there at the bottom. That is a poison ivy vine. And poison ivy vines will get you. just as much as the poison ivy leaves will get you. In fact, when the leaves are dead, you can still react to them. This is some of the poison ivy hanging down from it, and it's in flower, which you don't always see. Poison ivy can also create berries, which you'll see in the fall. And this tree is so covered in it that as you look up the trunk, all that greenery you see, that's all poison ivy. None of that is the actual greenery from this tree. It's only coming from that poison ivy vine. So if you want to kill this, you're going to chop that vine at the bottom. And then just chopping it is going to do a lot, but it won't kill it from the root. But if you chop the vine without hurting the tree, and then spray that cut that you've made with some kind of a weed killer, and that will kill that whole poison ivy vine that's probably going to try and kill this tree eventually with how much of the tree it's taken over. But one thing you don't want to do when killing poison ivy is to burn it. If you burn the poison ivy, it will release the toxins into the air, and if you breathe those in, then you can react to the toxins in the air and they'll get all in your respiratory system. It's very dangerous. Another thing to note with poison ivy is that truly, if you don't want to get it, all you have to do is take a shower within 2 hours of exposure to poison ivy. Use a good soap. Doesn't have to be any kind of special soap, just soap. And you gotta actually scrub with it, not do like my children and just let the water run over your body. But take a washcloth, take soap, scrub it good, and when you've washed that oil off of your skin, you'll be fine. If it's been longer than 2 hours, you may still react to it. But be thorough, get it all over, because some people will have spread the oil around their body. If you've touched where the poison ivy touched and then you touch somewhere else on your body, then that poison ivy oil will spread around on your body and you will react in all of those areas as well. So here is another commonly misidentified plant with poison ivy, because you notice again it has 3 leaves coming off the central stem. Obviously it's rather windy right now. So this particular plant, again, is not poison ivy, but sometimes you will find poison ivy growing right in the same patch as this particular plant. So you want to make sure that you don't just go, oh, I'm safe, there's no poison ivy here, because it very well may be growing right in among it and it can blend in pretty well. Big difference you see on this plant is that the stems are hairy. They've got like this brown hair over it, and they're very tough and fibrous. This plant, as you see it growing all over there, bet you can guess, this is kudzu. It is an Asian vine that utterly takes over in lots of sunny hillsides. You see it alongside roadways. It's just all over the place, and it very much likes to just take over. But it is not poison ivy, it is harmless. However, notice that tree. On that tree, you see a hairy and scary vine going right up the side of that tree. I think we may have chopped that vine at some point, but the vine's still there, so it still could cause some trouble to somebody. I'm looking up the tree and I don't see poison ivy growing up there, so we probably killed off the vine, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't there before, and it couldn't still cause me some trouble if I went and rubbed on it. I was asked yesterday while on a walk with some students if poison ivy can ever have 5 leaves. No, it cannot. Always 3 leaves. If you've seen a vine with 5 leaves, like this one right in front of me, it is not poison ivy. What you're dealing with here is Virginia creeper, which is harmless, although some people do react to it. Up what we've learned about poison ivy. Look for 3 leaves, but you need to know more. This is poison ivy. This is not. This is kudzu. So you need to be able to see the difference between the two. This one has a hairy stem. That one would have a hairy vine if it was growing up, but this actual stems here, they're not hairy. They tend to be reddish. You often have lobing on the leaves or toothing on the leaves, but not always. Sometimes they're smooth, so you can't depend on that identification. No thorns, always 3 leaves, likes to grow up trees, has hairy vines.